Considering the fact that the United States of America and all of Europe are separated by an entire ocean, it's fair to understand that there'd be quite a few differences between the two regions. Not only will there be differences between language and terminologies, terms like college versus university, pants versus trousers, or lines versus cues, there are many other differences that one would find between the two continents. One of the differences that one would notice immediately is the types of trucks that are used in both regions. Although they're mostly used for the same things, that is the transportation of various types of goods over short and long distances, it's glaringly clear to an observer that both jurisdictions use distinctly different trucks. In the US, we find that the prevailing type of truck being used for the purpose mentioned is the conventional truck, that is much larger, while the ones used in Europe appear to be much smaller and shorter than their contemporaries overseas. So what is the cause of this difference? Is it simply a matter of preference, an issue with the size of the roads, or a matter of policy? Which type of these trucks are better? Well, in today's video, that is just what we're going to find out. So I'm going to have to ask you truck enthusiasts to sit back and relax as we take a look at why American and European trucks are so different. I guess the best starting point is to take note of the physical differences between these trucks that we can notice immediately. As we mentioned before, any layman would be able to identify these differences once both types of semi-trucks are placed side by side to each other. Over in the US, you'd find that semi-trailers are much larger because the bigger they are, the more they can tow. They can easily be identified by their long noses, which house the truck's engine, and the large cabins, and this is because it appears that the American truckers can spend months living within their trucks. This is due to the fact that they tend to travel over longer distances than their European counterparts, as they've been known to travel for stretches of over 12 hours out of a 24-hour day. This allows the truckers to have a comfortable place to rest and relax before starting another long shift the next day. This is in direct comparison with the cab-over semi-trucks that can be found in much of Europe. The cab-over trucks are designed with the engine built beneath the cab, which allows the cab to be less than 10 feet long. The need for comfort that the American truckers crave is less of an issue for the Europeans because, unlike the Americans, the European drivers are only allowed to drive for a period of 9 hours over somewhat shorter distances. And as such, they could always find a place to rest their heads before heading out the next day. That being said, it must be noted that these cab-over trucks were once popular in the US, up until the mid-80s when the regulations that insisted on the use of cab-over trucks were lifted after it was noticed that the American truckers preferred the comfortable traditional trucks we see in the US today. The design differences come into play in several other ways. For example, due to policy, the length of the European trucks come in at about 61 feet. They're also not allowed to travel at speeds higher than 55 miles per hour. This is due to regulation that was passed within Europe, considering the fact that most of the roads and lanes were built many centuries ago, and as such were designed mostly for human use rather than vehicles. Although they may have interstate lanes, these smaller trucks give the European truckers the ability to pass through the smaller and windier roads that could be found within Europe. In contrast, the American truckers are used to much bigger roads and are capable of traveling at speeds similar to the Europeans, or even much faster than that, depending on what states the truckers find themselves in. For example, in California, the maximum speeds for trucks is about 55 miles per hour, while in Texas, these big boys are allowed to speed through highways at speeds of up to 85 miles per hour. Apart from the speed differences, it turns out that the standard cabs that are used in the United States of America are more effective than the cab-over semi-trucks used in much of Europe. This is despite the fact that the cab-over trucks have been deemed to be better at hauling bigger and heavier weights. That being said, once similar trucks from both jurisdictions have been compared directly to each other, analysts discovered that the ordinary trucks used in the US are more energy efficient, as they tend to utilize less fuel than the cab-over trucks. This is due to the fact that the cab-over trucks tend to have a larger drag coefficient than the traditional trucks driven in America. That being said, these cab-over trucks appear to be more maneuverable due to the fact that they are actually lighter than their American counterparts, and they seem to have shorter wheelbases than the traditional ones used overseas, which makes them perfect for the smaller and windier roads in Europe, like we alluded to earlier. In conclusion, it appears that there's much to be said about which truck is better. The American ones are more comfortable, while the European ones seem to possess better handling than their American counterparts. And as such, it appears that the issues of preference aren't focused on which is better, but where the rider finds themselves. Nonetheless, the differences are clear. While the American trucks are larger, faster, and more comfortable, the European ones are more maneuverable and perfect for smaller space. Thankfully, we have them so that we can haul all our large packages from one place to another with ease. Well, that's a wrap for this video. Let us know which truck seems more practical to you in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to never miss any of our future updates. Till then, goodbye.